distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen.
My name is Brother Ray Ray.
Hey, Brother Ray Ray.
We'd like to welcome everyone to the BK History Club. We meet here, first of all, for the people that's coming out, give yourself a great big hand. And for the Zoom audience that's on, give yourself a great big hand for coming in and supporting the BK History Club. We meet here every other Wednesday in honor of Bill Mackey Jr., Louis Ray Rivera, Alton Maddox, El-Haj Malik Al-Shabazz, Dr. Professor Amos Wilson, original member of the Mackey's group, Brother Hassan, Gil Noble, Colette Colvin, Minister Khaled, Alton Maddox, Professor George Simmons, and all the historians who gave up fame and fortune in this Women's History Month in honor of Leola Maddox. These people,
Thank you.
UAM for life. We never want to forget the work of Miss Leola Maddox, who drove a moderately old car, got a lot of miles to the gallon, and came from, I think, Teaneck, New Jersey, to have live lectures at the United African Movement. Ate her dinner there on Atlantic Avenue. Ate her dinner on Fulton Street. So we never want to forget Miss Leola and the Women's History Month, all the warrior women. My mother included, grandmother, sister, everybody. And if we keep that going 24 hours, we'd be all right. My lovely wife, who's the camera person for the Mackey's group. So, all these people who burn the midnight oil to bring truth, we never want them to go down. Because in this day and time, as I was talking to Sababu, and the conscious network is steady dwindling, but we still come here, and it's a blessing to meet in person. So we never want to forget these people. So we're going to bring the camera over to the Amos collection. I was with Brother Sababu. He's still rolling, and he's coming out with another book. Amos's birthday was just the other February. So we're going to bring the camera over to the Amos collection. And we have Amos's classic, Blueprint for Black Power. We have the latest via Sababu, Psychology of Self-Hatred and Self-Defeat toward a Reclamation of the African Mind. We also have Amos's classic, Black-Owned Black Violence, the Psychodynamics of Self-Annihilation in Service of White Domination. And whether we know it or not, we are still dominated by the system. White domination, because they put us against each other, they have us killing each other, and they do it globally, and they're doing it now. They got us against each other because somebody likes one person and they a grown man, and the other person don't like that person, and they a grown man and will not speak to you because you're a grown man and you make your personal choices. This is how this system works. Issues of manhood in black and white, and that's a big problem. Awakening the natural genius of black children. Falsification of African consciousness. African-centered consciousness versus the New World Order. Garveyism and the Age of Globalism. So those are Amos's books in honor of Sababu to keep the work going. Of African World Info Systems, and Sababu is burning the midnight oil, and he is coming through with another publication, and I tell you, he says it's going to be good, so he's putting everything together. So let me get this camera together. Okay. So those books we have for African World Info Systems, and all the historians who gave up a lot, Professor George Simmons, Runoko Rashidi, They're not here today, but if we're not careful, their spirit will be long gone. Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. So they let us know. So I got a bunch of books, and you ever really know what really went on with Richard Pryor in the life? Pryor's conviction. And you talk about street life and prostitutes and hoe houses and women of the night and brothels. Richard Pryor went through a lot of stuff. And Professor Mackey used to always say, you want to find out about somebody, read the book. So this is an interesting book on Richard Pryor. Also, I found this in honor of Bill Mackey, trying to get some copies. And this is Going Home, The Return to the Georgia Backwoods, William Henry Mackey. And it goes in, to zoom in on this, Linda, it goes in on, he used to talk about Jacksonville. Jacksonville, Florida, in the backwoods of Georgia. Mackey brings it up. So I found this, got a lot of books there, in honor of Louis Ray Rivera. Never want to forget Louis. In his classic Jazz in Jail, when Professor Mackey passed away, Louis Ray came down here, and me, him, Calvin, and Brother Assad, and Brother Colvin, and all the original people, we would come down here, and Louis Ray would talk for hours and hours, and he lived on Jefferson Avenue, right down the block. And we would walk him home, and he would talk for another hour and a half, and we just walking and strolling. And I miss Louis Ray, so I never want to forget him. And he come out and launched a project down there. Knew my whole family. So Jazz in Jail, and he had a whole bunch of other publications. Dr. Ben, in his classic, Black Man of the Nile. And he goes into the building of the pyramids, all the languages, the hieroglyphics, and how they were built and everything on them walls that them great African warriors put there. Not too many computers at this time when Dr. Ben did this stuff. So that was an excellent book. All right. Women's History Month. Queen Nzinga, woman warrior. And if a lot of sisters read about the fierce warrior spirit of Queen Nzinga and her dealing with the Portuguese, they didn't even want her to sit down. And the brothers made a bench for her to sit down, and she negotiated fierce. And if you read this book, too many chumps would be pulling the wool over your eyes. They wouldn't be doing the stuff they do. Thanks to the African Echoes family and Brother Truss Graham, Robert Walker, when we ruled, it was a time we controlled everything. And we made a lot of mistakes too, but this is an excellent publication from the African Echoes family, and I wind up finding this in the house, and I said, let me bring it over. Reparations, Slavery by Another Name, the re-establishment of black Africans from the Civil War to World War II. So the books is out here, and they're good for everybody to get. The creation of the umbrella. It was not meant to stop rain. The sewer system in Europe, the disease, the germs, and that's one of the reasons when they came through, they sprayed them down with lice, sprayed them down with water to get the lice off of them, and you're talking about disease. This book, Dirt, bring out a lot of stuff on that. We want to thank Terrence McLaughlin. Okay. Dr. Tyreen Wright, The Making of a Pan-African, Booker T. Washington. Everybody say a lot of different things, but she wrote a book. Booker T was a very serious cat, and I got to get her back down there, so these publications is here. Everybody's talking about reparations, everybody's talking about everybody else getting some money. This mayor just got a form of reparations for bite food messenger people who was giving the wrong pay for delivering food. And I think he got them, within 2 weeks in office, he got them over $5 million, something like that. Now, I wouldn't care if they gave them $5 each. That's a form of reparation. We've been begging for this money for years for the atrocities. The dogs, the hangings, the whips, the hangings, the postcards, where they would rip your body across, throw you in a bucket of hot sugar cane.
Don't forget the burning.
The burnings, the whips, the hangings. And when we asked for some money, these bums got the nerve to talk about another study. Here's a guy that was strung up in the lynching of Lee Hall. Just look at it. And you have these studies with black folk sitting there talking this crap. $5 million. Mayor Mamdani came in and got some money for these folks. And ain't nobody say nothing. I don't care if they gave them $2 a piece. It's theirs for something done wrong to them. Medical marijuana, weed spots all over the place. They selling it on my block. You can't do nothing about it. The white people are smoking it. The blacks are smoking it. The Asians are smoking it. They running down the street. They rolling weed and they selling it. The whites are selling it. They got them all. They got more weed spots than liquor stores. And you can thank George Soros. He's the man behind it. But this book gets into the Chinese opium drug wars, where they got the black people strung out and destroyed us, from dope to crack. Now they got fentanyl and oxy. So Lyndon LaRouche brings this up, and George Soros is the man behind the curtain. Black identity and political activism in New York, 1878 to 1861. Fierce time period in our lives. So I want to thank the African Echoes family, Brother Truss and True and them, for bringing out these excellent books for us to get our hands on. And this is Lisa M. Alexander. These were some tough times. The draft riots was 1865, where they hung us from the lamp poles of the Children's Orphanage in 5th Avenue and 42nd Street. It's a big tourist attraction now with that library. But people walk through there and don't know. We fought them Irish. Them Irish came through and they just was ripping us apart. They tried to make a movie of it, but it was no good. So this book gets into the struggles. In honor of Cynthia McKinney, when China sneezes from the coronavirus lockdown to the global political economic. And in my personal opinion, she's the only one that cared about the people of Georgia, not Warnock, not all these other guys down there. Cynthia McKinney, and they ran her out of town. I don't even think she's in the United States. She has another book. When Donald Trump mentioned S-hole countries, she wrote a book, How America Creates S-hole countries. And America's behind a lot of stuff. See, they say the president say stuff, but America is making the decision, corporate. So we want to thank Cynthia McKinney, and I tell you, if you left it up to me, she's the only one that cared about the people of the state of Georgia. Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of Black Civilization. And if you visit the African Echo Study Group on a Friday and the Know Thyself Study Group on a Saturday, they're getting in-depth on the mistakes we made as global people in that large landmass. We made a lot of mistakes. The Islamic slave trade, Chancellor Williams gets into it. And also the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat toward a reclamation of the African mind. So if you want to get in-depth on that, they have 2 excellent study groups. Sharif, leave that, make sure that door is open.
Yes, sir.
The Unspoken Alliance, Israel's secret relationship with apartheid South Africa. Israel is controlling a lot of things and they're making decisions right now. And they control a lot of the things that these presidents do. The shadow government, how George Soros, Hillary Clinton, and 60s radicals took control of the Democratic Party. And they have another book that I wish everybody get. It's called The Man Behind the Curtain. The Secret Network of King George Soros. You talking about the King's March and all this, listen. King George Soros is a bad dude. And if you want to see how he got a lot of his money in the beginning, taking gold out of people's mouths in the concentration camps, and they snuck him into America. Lies, times, and trading secrets of the world's greatest investor. Greatest investor. Not Warren Buffett. But this guy is a real humdinger. Professor Mackey used to always say, if you read a book and thank Dr. Lewis, you want to know about somebody? The Trumps, 3 generations that built an empire. Dr. Lewis said Trump's father came here with a raggedy pair of drawers and a suitcase. And if you read the history of these Europeans coming to the New World, which they called it, the New World, they came with nothing. So it's a lot of stuff in this book. And he joined the secret society. And the secret society helped him build them buildings he got out in Queens. So it's a lot of stuff when you want to read about individuals that's in these books. Io Kamati, Irritated Genie, in his 1-2 punch, Jews are the problem and the psychology of the Jew. We want to thank Io, War on the Horizon. And he's in Burkina Faso right now, negotiating and bringing information. So thank you, Brother Io. And we have this 2-book, Jews Are the Problem. The gangs of New York. At one time, they had over 400 roving gangs in the 5 Points, City Hall. The world's worst slum. And we were down there. And it was the creation of the great experiment. New York was a great experiment. They got almost a 10 DVD collection on the history of New York. PBS used to have it, but I have the collection. And it was a social experiment, and it's still going on today. So this book, The Gangs of New York, the Bloods and the Crips and the Nestars and all these gangs ain't got nothing on these bad boys in the early 1800s, 1700s. They ain't got nothing on them. And this book, The Gangs of New York, started organizations that still run today. We haven't been able to accomplish that. Because we don't read about how they built, how they started empires, organized crime. An empire of their own, how the Jews invented Hollywood. And they still disrespecting us every day with their movies. The guy would have never put that stuff out about former President Obama and his wife if Hollywood hadn't depicted the gorilla image. Hollywood, Jews, how the Jews invented Hollywood. They created all these derogatory images of us. What's the movie where the ape was on the Empire State with that King Kong? The King Kong image, chasing an old white woman. Then they're going to take the basketball star and make him, every time they make a basket or a sport, they make them like they apes and all kind of crazy. And these $40 million slaves, that's the first thing they do when they make a basket entertaining people in the stands, is they make these gorilla faces. So they disrespect us with Birth of a Nation, with we being drug dealers, always scared, shaking, not a killer image. And these black exploitation movies brought Hollywood out of the black. Hollywood was dead until they came out with the black exploitation movies. It turned us into drug dealers, pimps, all kind of nonsense. And they still doing it today.
Yes, sir.
Disrespecting us. And we're paying to go see it. So this book, Harry Cohen, William Fox, Carl Lambert, Louis B. Mayer, Jack and Harry Warner, Adolph Sokol, and all of them. And they created scenes that didn't exist. And they hated Neil Girdler for writing the book. This young lady, Whitney Webb, and she's not the only one. One Nation Under Blackmail, Organized Crime and the Epstein Files. So regular people talking about the Epstein Files, you go to the Poor People's Club. You don't have enough money to go to that big club. Your money ain't long enough. You go to the bum clubs over in the hood. You can't get nowhere close to them. Only big people go there. And all of them was at that freak show. The manufacturing of a president, the CIA insertion of Barack Hussein Obama into the White House. And in my personal opinion, Jesse Jackson's son said, do not put that nonsense in the funeral service. And the 3 former presidents went there, and Obama just disgraced the whole, you know. So if you want to really know how he came into power, you read this book, and there's a couple of other ones that's out there about him. That's just in the book. Wayne Mansfield, Capitalism on a Ventilator, how they made all this money during the 19. My good friend, Dr. Scott Whitaker, and he gave a little help for my friend in Brooklyn, and I hope he's listening to him, but the causes, solutions, malnutrition, and the medical sins that are killing the world, Dr. Scott. Rand Paul, CO19. The American Medical Killing Machine. Mark Sloan, Crimes, Conspiracy, and the Death of His Mother, the Cancer Industry. Edward Down, the young people, the heart attacks, the people that are waking up unresponsive, deaf, where they waking up in the bed, the young athletes, full of strong testosterone, dropping dead on the football field. Edward Dow brought this out. And the stuff is not going away. 5 years later, it's still happening. The turbo cancers, the Bell's palsy. And you can't even connect the dots. Down the CO rabbit hole. And I don't know, this book right here, the Pfizer papers. They had the Moderna papers, but the Pfizer papers, and it tells you what happens to your blood during the spike protein. It tells you what happened to the body. It explains to you what happens. And Pfizer didn't want to come out with this information, and they forced them. They had the Moderna papers, and I don't know what them big boys did with Moderna, but they did not come out. I ordered that book. And they said, no, 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 no. So I know whatever's in that book is no good. This is a history of vaccines from the 1800s, and it tells you the whole history of vaccines. So these are just some books. You get to them. These are some events, family. Thursday, Thorough Black Talk. Tad, Keisha, Brother Black, Sister Mama, Sister Brooke, and the brother from the Freedmen's Bureau. They have a Thursday show. It's one of the hottest shows in the country. What's the brother's name?
Divine.
Brother Divine. That's a heavy show. And they're talking about the FBAs and all the nonsense that's going on with the reparations and all these sellouts. And they even got a well-known organization that tried to pull a coup d'etat. Very well known. It'll come out full of crap. Blog Talk Radio, our Philadelphia connection, Sister Empress Chi, Brother Lumumba. That program comes on Saturdays at 10 o'clock, and it's on YouTube. And it's live, and you can say what you want to say, and well, you can't say what you want to say because now the language is something else. So Sister Empress and them and Brother Lumumba and them is bringing it on. Ayo Kamati, Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. Brother Anthony Mohammed, that comes on Mondays at 10 o'clock. From 9 to 10 is Dr. Haru, and he's at excellent health material. And then from 10 to 11, Brother Io, and he's coming out with all kind of information. We want to thank Anthony Mohammed. That's Sankofa Revolutionary Radio, and that comes on 10 o'clock on Monday. Please do not miss that information. They had a lot of good information on PSA and prostate cancer and different ingredients to help you. So excellent program, Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. Also, our Baltimore Connection, Powerhouse, Brother Darren Muhammad. Sometimes he comes on Wednesday, Thursday, but the Saturday program is a blockbuster. Darren Muhammad comes on 12 o'clock, State of the City, and his brother Kenny Ebron has a Tuesday program that comes on, State of the City, and they're telling you everything that's going on in Baltimore. You think New York is bad. Oh my God, Baltimore is something else. But these two individuals are giving some great information on what's going on in Baltimore, Maryland, especially the city of Baltimore. Dr. Aleem, he was on yesterday, he was on Tuesday, excellent program that comes on at 7 o'clock. Your Immunity Project, so Dr. Aleem is giving out some excellent information on health and what's going on globally. Every Friday, African Echoes, Brother Trust Graham, Brother True, and all the good people out of Newark, New Jersey. That's the African Echo Study Group that comes on from 8 to 10. Information is in the chat if you're looking to join in, and they are doing the psychology of self-hatred, and Trust is the mediator of that, our keynote speaker. But you better log on. That's an excellent information, African Echoes. And then they come back Saturday with another 1-2 out of Asbury Park. That's the Know Thyself Study Group. And they're doing Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of Black Civilization, and other publications, and it's just excellent. So when you think that we didn't have no problems in the land of the black, Chancellor Williams is going to tell you very much differently. The Simotap organization, James McIntosh, Dr. Betty Dobson, in the Mindfield program that comes on every Tuesday at 10 o'clock on WBAI. So those are just some events, and the UNIA with President Michael Duncan and First President General Raymond Dugal, and they're trying to get us back on the block with race first, myself included. We need a whole lot of work, but the UNIA is really trying their best. We have the flyers here. They have a store. It's a mini Jetros. It's on 13205 Merrick Boulevard. And it's a mini wholesale place where you can get stuff. Excellent. Everybody in there is black. Everybody in there is nice. And if you could get out there, 13205 inside Burnap Street, across the street from the Home Depot. But when you go there, they have excellent products, excellent, it's just unbelievable. Oh, in honor of Jamil Alameen, I forgot to put the picture up. So ladies and gentlemen, those were just some information for us to do and you to look into. So we messed up last week due to the snow, but I didn't always want to bring my good friend Trust and a big friend of Dr. Mackey's and the BK History Club. He's going to come with Pan-Africanism. He's going to add some other information about Women's History Month. I want you to give a great big hand for our keynote speaker and a good friend of myself and the people here, Brother Trust Graham.
Red. It's not working. It's not working. He's adding.
Trust.
Yes, sir.
Okay, folks. First, let's give a round of applause to our brother Ray, who handled the situation. Acknowledge Ray and Sister Linda and the William Mackey, study group for keeping, the legacy of William Mackey and the William Mackey History Club alive. And, it's not an easy task in order to make sure that these events go on a regular, timely basis and get people involved in order to make sure that you get good information and most of all a variety of different kind of information, to draw from whatever particular source that you would like to draw from. So it's always important to acknowledge those individuals who actually go out their way beyond the call of duty to provide you an outlet in order to receive this type of information on a regular basis. So I want to acknowledge that first. Second, I want to acknowledge that this is Women's History Month, so it's important that we acknowledge all of the African queens throughout the world. No matter where they might be. The uniqueness of black women you are truly the women of civilization. It's not a cliche. It's not something that, is hyperbole. It just happens to be the scientific fact. And that is that African women and African men are the parents of humanity. And that's important for us always to acknowledge that particular role that we play. We are not brothers and sisters of humanity. In other words, we don't have brothers and sisters. They are our children. That's important to understand, so where they came from. So we want to acknowledge Women's History Month, and specifically African women. And, the world over, and as, taking a page out of Marcus Garvey's words, at home and abroad. At home and abroad. So, you always want to take into consideration that. The last time I was here, we talked about Willie Lynch. We gave some particular outline. I brought a few books if those individuals who would like to purchase a couple of books. But before I get into the subject matter of today, I would like to read a biography, which I normally do in all of my study groups. That means in my study groups, we open up by reading a woman's biography. And the reason that is because throughout history, in general, and throughout history, particularly in African American history, as well as African history in general, the woman has been given a short end of the stick in regard to their particular accomplishment. One of the things that a lot of times we don't realize is that most of the roles and positions that African men play in the world or in our particular social and struggle development, that there was a woman right beside him, at every turn. And a lot of times they don't get the credit, they don't get the the paper, they don't get the acknowledgement of their contribution. And I mean, in every single act. So when we talk about the civil rights movement, most of it, a great deal of it, were women. The only problem is we didn't realize who they was. Anybody ever heard of an organization called the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee? Right. And a lot of people have said, can anybody name a member of can you name one member of SNCC? Ella Baker, that's a good one. Stokely Carmichael. Anybody else? Well, she's the only one that actually named somebody as significant. Stokely Carmichael is probably the name you would probably hear the most. him or H. Rap Brown or, a few other individuals, John Lewis. These were individuals that became prominent personalities, figures, and faces of SNP. But it was Ella Baker who started that organization. And it's Ella Baker who created and formulated the foundation of what it meant to be a civil rights activist. A lot of times that's not brought to the forefront, but that happens to be the reality. So when we talk about these organizations here, the organization gets prominence. Personalities in the organization get prominence, but the person who founded it is left in the dust. And we are the ones that become the custodians of our own history. It's our responsibility and job to make sure that she's never forgotten. You know what I'm saying? She's never forgotten. So, again, Ella Baker, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, one of the baddest sisters that ever literally led an organization, by far. So y'all want to check that out. I'm going to start this evening by reading a biography, a short one, a biography of a very prominent individual who played also a collaborating role on a very, very important organization that a great deal of y'all are familiar with. And a lot of times you might know the personality, like I said, who's the male of this organization, but a lot of the individuals who became the female, collaborators, the co-founders didn't always get that kind of attention. The person that I'm going to be dealing with this evening is Henrietta Vinton Davis. Henrietta Vinton Davis. Anybody ever heard of her before? Good, that's real good. That's good. Don't think because you don't know nothing that's a bad thing. It's not. Never ever be down on yourself for what you don't know. No matter how much you think you should know it versus how much you don't know. That's what I'm saying, because a lot of times you say, well, I should know that. No, don't worry. You don't know it. That's it. That's it. Case closed. Ain't no getting upset about it. But in this case, the issue is trying to remedy this situation by finding out. That's it. Henrietta Vinton Davis. The information that I'm drawing from is from a website called Black Past. Black Past. That means if you go into your internet and you Google Henrietta Vinton Davis, obviously quite a few sites will come up. This particular site happens to be the Black Past. Now, if you really want to have a repository of black women in your household, you want to have a book called Black Women in America. It's written, it's put out by Carlson Publications. It was published here in Brooklyn, New York in 1994. It's 2 volumes. It's probably one of the best repositories on black women ever written. The chief editor is Darlene Clark Hine. And it is probably, again, the most extensive, material. It's been out for maybe 5-10 years now. But it is a very good repository, and it's a lot of personalities that you don't know and individuals you know but know very little information of. So, again, Henrietta Vinton Davis, 1860 to 1941. 1860 to 1941. This particular biography was written by Samuel Mamadou. Samuel Mamadou. That's quite interesting. He got half of a Senegalese name and half of an English name. This particular biography was written by this brother Samuel Mamadou in October 13, 2016. Henrietta Vinton Davis was an American elocutionist, dramatist, and impersonator. She was also considered to be the physical, intellectual, and spiritual link between the abolitionist movement of the Frederick Douglass era and the African redemption movement of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and the Africans Communities League. That's a very important connection, because a lot of times we don't look at that in regard to the evolution of these personalities and figures like Frederick Douglass and then Booker T. Washington. You know, what role that played in that transformation from one particular era to another, and then the philosophies that changed from Frederick to Booker T. Washington, and then from Booker T. Washington to Marcus Garvey, and so forth and so on. These things have a very important impact. It says that Davis was born in Baltimore, Maryland on August 25th, 1860, to Mansfield Vinton and Mary Ann Johnson Davis. Shortly after Davis was born, her father died, and soon after, her mother remarried, George A. Hackett. He died in April of 1870 after a short illness, and Mary Ann Hackett moved her daughter to Washington, D.C., where she was able to receive her public school education. At 15, Davis passed the teacher's examination and began teaching in Maryland public schools. Let me say that again. It says, at 15, Davis passed the teacher's exam. At 15. And began teaching in Maryland public school system. In 1870, Davis began the first African American women employed by the Office of the Recorder of Deeds in Washington, D.C. Here, she met Frederick Douglass, who held the position of Recorder of Deeds from 1881 to 1886. Davis shared her theoretical interests and talents with Douglass, and subsequently began her stage career at the age of 22 on April 25th, 1883. When she was introduced by Douglass before an integrated theater audience during the summer of 1883, Davis toured in Boston, Worcester, and New Bedford, Massachusetts, Providence, and Newport, Rhode Island, Hartford and New Haven, Connecticut, and New York City and Albany, New York. Davis' performances consisted of a diverse spectrum of works, from Paul Laurence Dunbar, Negro dialects, to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, and As You Like It, The Battle by Frederick Schiller, and How Tom Sawyer Got His French Whitewashed by Mark Twain. Davis is considered the first African American to have performed Shakespearean plays since Ira Aldridge. Anybody know who Ira Aldridge is? Write this down. Write this down. Write this down. Ira, I-R-A, Aldridge, A-L-D-R-I-D-G-E. Ira Aldridge. This is one of the most prolific thespian as well as educators that the black community has ever produced. One of the significances is that black education in the South wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Ira Aldridge. Y'all need to know who Ira Aldridge is. In 1893, Davis began her own theatrical company in Chicago and began touring across the U.S. And on one occasion, she and her company traveled the Caribbean to perform. By 1900, Davis began collaborating with leading journalists and future members of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, John E. Bruce. Davis first learned of the work of Marcus Garvey and the UNIA while traveling the Caribbean in 1917 and 1918. Let me say that again. She first came across Marcus Garvey and the UNIA traveling to the Caribbean in 1917 and 1918. How old was the UNIA in 1918? Anybody know?
About a year old, wasn't it?
No.
You say it again? What was the question?
1918. 1917 and 1918. It says that while traveling in the Caribbean in 1917 and 1918, she was impressed with the Garveyites. The issue here is that when Marcus Garvey came to the United States, it was 1913. 1916. The 1913 is when the Garvey movement started. And it started in Jamaica. But it didn't get its foundation, its legs. It didn't become a legitimate organization of renowned stature until it came to New York. So in 1918, the organization was already 5 years old. But if I said to you, who was the founder of the UNIA? What's that guy's name? Get out of here. Now, let me tell you who really started the UNIA. Amy Ashwood Garvey. Let me say this clear. Amy Ashwood Garvey and Marcus Garvey. This is important because most of y'all think that Marcus Garvey did this thing on his own, by himself, as if though there was nobody there to help him. And that's not how it happened. So I want this to be clear. Amy Ashwood Garvey.
But you also mentioned last time you was here, the colors was originated from Harrison, right?
Say that again?
The colors, it was first started the...
Oh yeah, you're talking about the red, black, and green. Yes, correct. So I want y'all to remember that. Amy Ashwood Garvey. It says she was so impressed, this talking about Henrietta Vinton Davis. She was so impressed with the Garveyites that in 1920, at the age of 60, she gave up her stage career to work full-time for the UNIA. Davis became the organization's first international organizer. Let me say that again. Davis became the organization's first international organizer, a director of Black Star Line, and the second vice president of the Negro Factories Corporation. She was also one of the signatories of the Declaration of the Rights of the Negro Peoples of the World at the UNIA-ACL convention in New York City on August 1920. By 1921, Davis had become the fourth assistant president general of the UNIA after she established the UNIA divisions branches in Cuba, Guadeloupe, Virgin Islands, Haiti, Trinidad, Tobago, and Jamaica. Did y'all hear what I just said? Are y'all? Because we know Marcus Garvey is getting a lot of credit for the organization being in a lot of different places.
Right.
But they don't tell you how that happened. Y'all think that Marcus did it.
Right.
Y'all know Marcus Garvey have a Back to Africa concept, movement. We all familiar with that? All of y'all familiar with that? How many individuals did Marcus Garvey take to Africa?
None.
Who said that? She said none. Anybody believe what she's saying is true?
I believe
He said he believes it. Anybody else?
One.
Say that again.
One.
One. He said one. Anybody else? She is correct. None. Dr. Ben took more individuals than Africa. Let me say this again. Dr. Ben took more people to Africa than Marcus Garvey, than William Blyden, than W.E.B. Du Bois. All put them together, took to Africa. You hear what I just said? But the person who is defined as the father of the Back to Africa movement is Marcus Garvey. Now, this is not an attack against our brother. This is to look at history in its accurate proportions and measurement and understand the value of what that has to offer. So when we research our heroes and heroines, we're doing it for the benefit of ourselves. That means we have a responsibility to leave no stone unturned, good, bad, or indifferent. That's our job. You can't get caught up into the egotism and the romanticism of history. That's not what this is about.
Right.
This is about learning the lessons of our tradition and culture. So this is important. This is not a run-of-the-mill. But let me go on. It says she established UNIA division branches in Cuba, Guadalupe, Virgin Islands, Haiti, Trinidad, Tobago, and Jamaica. That is an accomplishment. In 1929, 2 years after Garvey was deported to Jamaica, Davis was selected as UNIA Secretary General. That means when he left, she became the head joker. How many of y'all knew this? That a woman led the UNIA.
You never said it.
Let me go. It says that in 1929, 2 years after Garvey was deported to Jamaica, Davis was selected as UNIA Secretary General. 3 years later, in 1932, she broke away from the declining organization and became first assistant president general of the revival UNIA. In other words, she created her own organization. It says that in 1934, she was elected the president of the organization. Henrietta Vinton Davis died on November 23rd, 1941 in Washington, D.C. at the age of 81. That is a hell of a run. Again, Henrietta Vinton Davis. And again, this particular biography was written by Samuel Mamadou. Samuel Mamadou, a native of Nashville, Tennessee, received his Associates of Arts degree in history from Nashville State Community College in December of 2014 and read. Now, as you know, I said that he got a half a name of Senegalese. Here it says that he was born in Nashville. What do you think that means?
Repeat that.
I said that when I first read the biography that the person that wrote it was Samuel Mamadou. And I said to you that half his name was Senegalese and the other half was English or Christian.
Yeah, migration.
Right. No. I'm saying is that now I read you a biography of where and who this person is. It says that he's a native of Nashville.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Right. He's a native of Nashville, Tennessee. Received his Associates of Arts degree in history from Nashville State Community College in December of 2014. Now, I'm asking you, based on what I said to you about his name, what does that say?
One of his parents could possibly have been from West Africa.
That's it.
From mother.
Go ahead, my dear. Explain to us.
I'm saying most people have their father's surnames.
Right, of course.
They don't take them up.
No. Some, you got some individuals who want to be very different, and they might do that. But normally, most people that get married take the husband's name. So again, into that. So I just wanted to share that with you. That's my contribution for Women's History Month this evening, and it just to give y'all some insight in regard to,
That's all.
Can you read the part where she died November what in DC? She was 81. Hold
on one second. You said that she
died November something.
Okay.
Okay,
hold on. It says that in 1934 she was elected the president of the organization, Henrietta Vinton Davis, died on November 23rd, 1941 in Washington, D.C. at the age of 81.
That was their Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. So again, what that also means is that when I do these things, these are just to wet your whistle. That means just to give you an introductory of who this person is. It's your responsibility to do the follow-up and to go deeper and find out who this individual's detailed material was, and most of all, what role she played in the organization. Here, it identified certain particulars. But when you read the real in-depth history, you'll find out that she had way more juice than what you think.
Definitely.
You know, so you really want to check that out. Okay, now, again, as I said, last week, we was dealing with the death of Willie Lynch and the whole issue about exposing that particular myth. And we talked about the issue pertaining to you know, the role that truth plays in tradition, history, and culture. And one of the most important information that we have to always keep in mind is not whether our history is black or not.
Okay.
The most important thing about our history is whether it's accurate or not. That's the most important. Right, and if it's not accurate, I don't care how black it is, it's insignificant. Because there's a lot of information that is black that's not black. Let me say that again. There's a lot of information that is said is black that is not black.
Gotcha.
And that's a lot based on the individuals who really understand the methodology and the processes of research and study. This is not an exercise in romanticism. And let me explain something to you. Romanticism is a part of growing in a human experience. And it plays a role, but not the whole role. It plays a great deal of time as an introductory role. It's like a relationship. The first thing that you are attracted to a person is sex appeal. You know what you see, because you don't know the person. So you're only going on what you can see. And you're using that as a yardstick to determine on whether I would like to, you know, have contact with this person or not. So again, that's the immediate feeling, you know, about it. And I think what happens is that then you try to engage in communication to establish some sense of relationship, whatever it might be, how limited or whatever, to see whether the sex appeal, what you see, what you come in contact with, is compatible to what the personality and character might be, you know.
But isn't that also in storytelling? I know you're saying about the exaggeration, you gotta be careful with that, but you want substance.
Yeah, but I'm saying is that in the beginning, well, that's the whole idea. In the beginning, that's what you're gonna get, because the object is that no person in the beginning of a relationship puts their honest self first. They put the self that they want the person to believe and accept, and that's what most people do. You never find out about a person until after the connection comes, because everybody's putting on a face, you know. That's why you pull out your chair in the beginning, and then about 2 months later, you be like, get your own chair. You know. But the issue is that we have to understand that in relationships, there are periods of development and growth, like in anything. The only problem is that most of the time, we would like the relationship to stay new all the time.
Ain't happening.
You know, and we know it don't happen. But that's what we want. You know, 2 years later, they said, well, you don't pull my chair out anymore. You don't come and take me out. And he was like, well, I got you. I don't need to do that no more. You know.
But it also we have to constantly renew. Right?
Yeah, but again, the object is that we talking about renewing what? And the issue is that if you got to renew something, then you really are not in something. In other words, the object is what was my intention from the very beginning? Most of us don't do that in the very beginning. We are going on sex appeal, how good it looked, what that satisfaction, of appeal means to me. Is that more important than the substance, that's what's behind it? Because a lot of time, a person will say, well, I want a person that got character and personality. But if his car ain't right and his ducats ain't right, or
out the window, baby.
you know what I'm saying? You going right down the block. You know what I mean? So it's a whole different issue now. But
in
again,
time you do try to build on.
but that's what the whole idea is. Yeah,
because
you
everybody
grow.
don't look or things ain't the same like they used to. As
Yeah,
time goes
you're
on.
growing. You're trying to.
And some
You're trying to
things-
establish a good relationship. So, again, that's what that is all about. But back to the storyline. What I did in regard to the death of Willie Lynch was trying to expose you to information that is, again, universal in its exposure, but inaccurate in its body, in its, a basic information. Here's a set of information that has been circulated nationwide and also globally. The only problem is it's not true. Right. Now the problem is that in our community we have a sense of going along with anything that's black. No, this is a serious issue. I'm telling you, it's a real serious issue. Because if we paint it black enough, then we embrace it.
Right.
And we say that, okay, that could be true because y'all, like a brother said to me, well, it's hidden knowledge. So I said hidden, like if it's so hidden, how the hell you know it? Yeah, like come on, give me a break. But the issue is that, like I said before, the issue is not whether it's black enough, the issue is whether it's accurate. And that's what our job is to do, to make sure that we can validate what its accuracy is. And what level of accuracy. That means whether we really have definitive evidence to support a claim that something is or isn't.
Right.
It's like saying that Cleopatra was black.
Exactly.
The issue is, what evidence do you have that you can actually definitively show me that, and I'm not talking about some picture or something, I'm talking about some real evidence that can validate that this person is what you say it is. You see what I'm saying? Not saying that because, the hair looked like this. Like a guy said, he said to me, he's black because he got black features. So, I study anthropology. I know one thing. There's no such thing as black features. Right. All features in humans. Every feature that a human has is black.
That's right.
Let me just say that. And the reason I'm saying that is because we don't understand how humans, as we see variations of humans came to be versus where we at now. So this is why I say these things have an important point.
That gets the brother when he said hidden means that a lot of stuff been Europeanized or the culture, the white culture been, and it's just like downplayed or erased or put in the back everybody else's culture, and they just exhort the. And I agree
with that also. But when I'm making this statement about black history, it's a euphemism for history in general. So that means that whatever happens in black history, it happens in history in general. So don't think that white mainstream scholars don't do the same thing. They do. There's individuals right now that, I'm watching the DNA, I'm watching the ancestor, what's this guy, Louis Henry Gates. But in the same footage, there's another DNA study that was being done by some other group. So they had these 4 white guys. No, 3 white guys and 1 Korean. And they're doing a study, a DNA study on their ancestors. So they asked each guy, where do you think you're from? And he said, I think I'm, Italian. And this one says, I think I'm Korean. And this one says that. And then they have one guy, he says, well, I think I'm, 100% Ashkenazi Jew. Like that. So now I'm scratching my head. I'm like, what sequence code in human molecular biology says that there's a Jewish sequence code or Christian sequence code or Muslim sequence code? There's no frickin' thing. It's like saying that you got 6% Nigerian in you. There's no DNA that gives you 6% of anything, because it don't measure DNA in that context. What the 6% is saying that that you have 6% possibilities that your sequence code and the sequence code from this group of people have a common ancestor. That's all it means. It don't mean nothing about you Nigerian or freaking Alaskan or whatever. But what it does, it gives you this false impression as if though that your particular basic roots come from these individuals. That's not how the science works. But what happens is that we run with it and we look at it as being something majorly significant. And in reality, it's nothing.
So you're saying they're explaining it wrong to the general population?
That's correct. And not only that, and that's in anything, Abdul, anything that when people give you an information, they're giving it to you piecemeal. They're giving it to you in small increments. And what your job is to do, like a reporter, whenever somebody gives you information, like a reporter, you're supposed to take that shit and run and go research it. To make sure that when you pass that shit on to somebody else, that's right. That's your job.
So, Willie, you got a little bit of Jew in you, you got some Italian, you got a little bit of this, you everything, baby.
So this is why I say it's important to make sure that when we study this kind of material, like the study of Willie Lynch, or I told you all about the John Hanson and the first black president nonsense, you know, all of these things have a particular importance in the regard of how serious accuracy to our history is important. And I'm not talking, look, there's a lot of material in history, all kinds of history, that is limited in order to validate its authenticity. So that means that we have an idea, we have a certain amount of evidence, but it's not definitive. We can't say within a shadow of a doubt. Like for instance, when we talk about evolution, the evolution is real. The only problem is there is no evidence to say that this particular went from here to there and we can see it. In other words, we can't see it, but we know it happened. You understand? In other words, if something transpired is in the universe, and we seen it transpire versus it transpired and we seen the end results of it, to a scientist, to them, it's the same thing. It's like following the paper trail to a crime scene. A detective used the paper trail to go right back to where the crime was.
Right.
That's the exact same thing that you're supposed to do when you're studying information. You're supposed to take it all the way back to its primary beginning. That means primary evidence. That means its basic fundamental event that transpired, that action you are studying. That's what our job is. So that's why the study of Willie Lynch and this particular, this brother here, Manu Pim, and what he did with this book was so unique because he demystified and exposed the myth, but he also gave you an exercise in research and study. He gave you the ability to really go through the material and show you in point by point, evaluation what is needed to be done in order to come away with a true, accurate, benefit. So before I get into Pan-Africanism, is Cleopatra black and is Cleopatra African? Let me say that again. Is Cleopatra black and Cleopatra African?
But see, you going back into, again, the deep, you going like, we can just associate that with you just explaining about the DNA.
Yeah, but that's irrespective. First thing you know about information, and I'm going to say this again to everybody, never ever try to answer a question halfway. That means if you have half knowledge, that means I don't know.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? In other words, if you half know something, and you don't have definitive evidence, then it's best to say nothing. That way, eventually, you're going to find out. But what happens is that we go with what we think, not with what we researched. What we think is okay, or what we think we know.
That's bullshit.
Right, so let me ask the question again. Is Cleopatra black? Is Cleopatra African?
African.
What'd you say?
African.
She said he's African, but she's not black.
Black too.
She's black and African.
I think she's both.
She thinks she's both.
Don't know. I think she's, what was that?
Jamu said he don't know. I
I would say that she's African, but not necessarily black. She's a Ptolemy or whatever that, who her lineage was.
Okay, that's anybody? Anybody else?
My question is, what?
That's not the.
He asked
It's a question.
Don't go around it.
No, I can't go around it because I'm looking at because the definitions of black and African could be shaped.
Still, you could be whatever you want it to be.
Okay, whatever I want it to be. I'm gonna run the consensus. It's both.
Let's ask Dr. Lewis. What you think, Doc?
Don't know.
See, Dr. Lewis, this is a smart man here. He said, I don't know. But the true definition is what the young lady here said. Her parents are Macedonians. That means they're from Macedonia. See, a lot of times we think that when we think of Alexander, who they called the Great, is from Greece. He's not. He's from Macedonia. Right? He was a Macedonian. And Macedonians actually wanted to subdue. They wanted to fight Greeks. But eventually, be it as it may, her parents are Macedonian. But when she was born in Egypt. She was born in Egypt. Now, if you and your black husband was born in China, had baby in China, are they Chinese African Americans?
No.
Okay, what are they?
If you said if we were both black.
That's right.
We were born in China.
That's right.
I would say we both black.
That's right, and which means.
Born in the oven don't make a business.
That's right. There you go. I like this lady. I like her.
You know,
Right.
Malcolm X said, kids born in the oven don't make no
That's
business.
right. That's correct. That's what Malcolm said. Correct. And what we're talking about now is looking at these individuals based on their pedigree, via looking at these individuals based on geography. So remember, y'all just had some white South Africans that came to America.
That's right.
Are they Africans?
No, they boys.
Isn't Elon Musk?
They boys.
Yeah, but the issue is that, and this is what I'm saying to y'all. See, we are playing into the diatribe of race. And what happens is that we have this idea, even black people have this idea that white people are different than black people. But they ain't nothing but your kids. Whether you like that shit or not,
Right.
they your kids.
Right.
And the issue is that there's no white person on earth that did not come and have all features that came from you.
Yeah, cool.
You see what I'm saying? Our perspective of how we see these individuals are based on the very nature of the experience that we had. So that's why you don't go around the world and see everybody that had a particular experience that you think had the experience you had. So they look through, you look through eyes through race. But in North Africa, they don't look through eyes through race. They look through eyes through ethnicity. That means what language you spoke, what group, tribe you came from. That means more to them than what color you are. The problem is we got caught up into that because our experience here was primarily dictated because of color. Everything was color. So you can have an African right now, look just like me. I go to North Africa, I'm not black and I ain't white. I'm Arab. I'm Ubuntu. I'm whatever. And the reason that is because that's how they are defining an individual. We have a bad habit of trying to take racism and our particular form of discrimination and transport it historically. It's like saying that, well, they had racism in Rome. Get the fuck out of here. What is y'all talking about? How can they have racism in Rome? when everybody literally that ruled the friggin' place looked the same. And when I say look the same, I'm not talking about how I see you. I'm talking about everybody was what? Roman. Septimius Severus was from North Africa.
Okay.
Septimius Severus ruled Rome and England at the same time. One of the baddest generals that ever exist. And at not one time did he ever identify himself as African. He said, I'm Roman.
Cannibal.
He didn't say he was African Roman?
No, he didn't. He said, I'm Roman, because he knows that Rome means more than African at that time. And second is that, let me be honest, there was no Africa anyway, because it didn't exist.
So you talking about time period?
Well, the issue is that we use terms in what the term is anachronism. We use them out of context and out of time. The term Africa cannot be used until it's created.
Right.
It's like saying that I went to Spain or I went to Iberia. You can't go to both places because both of them didn't exist at the same time, even though it's the same place. It's like saying America and Mayan. America and Mayan. Two different things. Anybody ever heard of America?
Nah.
Anybody ever heard of America?
Yeah.
Where is it? Where is it?
Yeah.
Where is America?
In the north.
He gave a direction.
Well,
He gave it direction, but he.
It's a map. There's a thing called a map. You know that thing, they have a map. And in a map, they have places on that map. Right.
it's in between Canada and Mexico.
In between Canada and Mexico. No, it can't be. No, it's not. It can't be in between Canada and Mexico.
You know what? I was
Go ahead.
United States of America. I'm sorry. So
Yeah, that's again. See, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm going after. Is because we think that the United States is America. It's
north,
not.
It's north of South America.
That's right. Now,
Sorry about that.
It's the
the United States is North America.
Because it's the Americas, South,
No,
North, and South.
no. You have North, Central, and South. Right. It's important to understand that North America is Canada and the United States.
Exactly.
Central America is all them Caribbean countries and Puerto Rico and Cuba and all of them.
Honduras.
And South America is from Brazil and Suriname and all of them, all the way down to Argentina. That's America.
That's true.
Not the United States. Even though the United States has hijacked the term and now got y'all thinking that the only thing America is the United States. And geography tell you otherwise.
Exactly.
The problem is that most of us don't look at a map.
Everybody else
Right.
immigrants, right?
The other thing is that y'all was all upset about Donald Trump deciding that he gonna talk about the Gulf of Mexico and change it to the Gulf of America. Now, the issue is that y'all was upset, and I'm sitting back and saying, like, what is wrong with these people? I said, at what time did it become the Gulf of Mexico? Anybody know? Did any of y'all look it up?
No.
Well, you'll find out real quick that before it was the Gulf of Mexico, it was somebody else's shit. And the United States came and took it, and they named it something. They do it all the time. But y'all have some idea like this is wrong. As if though they never did it. They got a place here called America. And they came in and they took this shit.
Gangsters.
Cold gangsters. And the position was that we don't care what you say, what you act. Like a guy said, they were saying on one of them one of them CNN reports, they were saying that, well, we don't like these immigrants because they don't come and assimilate.
Right.
So he said they don't assimilate, they don't accept our culture, our language, our so-and-so. So one guy got up and said, well, wow, that's quite interesting. He said, I don't see none of y'all speaking any Native American Indian.
That's right.
He said, because when they came, y'all didn't assimilate. As a matter of fact, y'all wiped these people out. and put them on barren lands.
Reservations.
Think about that.
That's right.
The issue is that it just shows you how they really think and believe versus what they say and do.
Absolutely.
And this is how we have to look at them. So this is why I say the Willie Lynch and the John Hansons and the Black Cleopatras and, look, black people's history is too freaking long and too rich for y'all to be grabbing for straws at bullshit.
That's true.
I'm telling you, y'all don't need that. Y'all do not need that. Don't waste your time on it because it's just so much black and African history to draw on that is so rooted in fact, evidence, and science that it ain't gonna be nobody can even come close. Not even a little bit.
Picking the low fruit.
Yeah, don't even think about it. Okay, yes sir.
Where did the term Kibalong come from?
Doc Ben is the individual who actually came up with that particular term. It's actually a term that came out of what do you call it? Oh God, let me off the top of my head. I'm trying to think now. Northwest Africa. Now, the significance of our Kibuland is that beyond Doc Ben, there's no other source for it. That means you can't go to an ancient source and there's a text written that says Al Kibuland. You can't find it.
That's the problem.
Now, the issue is that the root of the etymology of the word is Arabic.
Okay.
Right. Now, the issue is that I'm pretty sure all of us know that Africa had a name of Africa before Arabs came.
Okay.
Now, when we think about Africa and Africans, the association that we get is an individual by the name of Leo Africanus. Y'all heard of him?
Yes.
Right. There was 3 Africanuses, Leo, Julius, and Scipio. Scipio's real name is Publius Cornelius Scipio, or Scipio Africanus. He was a Roman general, white man, who actually beat Hannibal. That's how he got the surname Africanus. Then there was Julian Africanus. Julian was the side man. He was the right-hand man to Eusebius. Eusebius was the individual who wrote the whole history of Christianity. Eusebius. Eusebius. And then you had Leo Africanus, who was Hassan el-Wassan. His name was Hassan el-Wassan. Y'all know him as Leo Africanus because when he converted to Christianity, the Pope, Leo X, gave him his name. That's how he got the name Leo.
What was it before he converted?
He was a Muslim. And a real serious, and how he hooked up with Christianity was he was taken by pirates at sea. And when they caught him and they brought him back to the court of the Pope, they found out how brilliant he was. He spoke many different languages. He could quote poetry. He was a science and literature, all of these things. So when the Pope, they told the Pope that they had him, they took him to the Pope's court and they introduced him. And him and the Pope, was like that. They were so close.
Period of time.
Yeah, he wrote a treatise.
Bobby had a drink together.
He wrote a treatise. Leo Africanus, Hassan el-Wassan, wrote a treatise on the geography, the cosmogony, and the geography of Africa. Leo Africanus. That's the name of the book. Now, most people that use the name Leo Africanus, they use it in regard to it being he was the individual who gave the name to Africanus. It could not have been because it was the event that we're talking about happened in the 15th century. Africa had already had a name in the 15th century. Most individuals look at it in regard to a particular group that lived in North Africa between the areas of Tunisia and Algeria, in the areas of Morocco and so forth and so on. And that area in there was called Africa.
Between Morocco and Algeria?
Between Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, that particular area. Back in the day, they used to call it Numidia, and they call it Numidia. Same area.
No, you just described 2 different Afrikaans names.
No, I described 3.
3, actually.
Right. Leo Africanus, Julius Africanus, and Scipio Africanus. Again, Scipio was a Roman general for the Roman army. And he was the individual who conquered Hannibal. That's why he got the name. In other words, the guy Scipio, he got the name Africanus because he'd be the African. Get it? The other 2, they got the name, like I told you, Leo got his name Africanus because, see, him and when he got converted to Christianity, he took as a Christian name, the Pope gave him his name, Leo. But because of the time while they was living together, Leo Africanus, he was outshining the Pope. And the Pope was like, the people was like, no, that shit can't happen.
Not the Pope, baby.
That's right. So they wanted to make sure that they was distinguishing who the Pope was and who Leo Africanus was. So what they did was they gave because the Pope was actually Pope Leo X. And they gave him Africanus so that you could distinguish that now we're talking about Leo the African versus Leo the Pope. You get what I'm saying? And they was able to do well. But the stories that are told about Leo Africanus, most of them are false, especially in the black community. And I was one of the first ones to get to have an experience that with what's his name, Conrad Muhammad. You remember Conrad? Yeah. I mean, he's a Christian now. He's right here in Brooklyn, got a church and everything. But he was a Muslim then, and he was on the radio. He was on Gary Bird Radio. He was on Gary Bird Radio, and he had made this statement that, because what had happened was, what's his name? Naim Akbar was being interviewed by Gary Bird. And he was in there, and in the interview, he made a statement that Malcolm was confused in regard to his situation that he was going on with Malcolm with Elijah and the whole thing about sitting him down and everything. So I guess he didn't realize that Betty Shabazz listened to Gary every day. Right? So as soon as he made the statement, she called up and she said, was you in the nation when my husband was in the nation? He said no.
When he born.
She said, do you know my husband? She said no. He said, have you ever met any of my family members? He said no. He said, well, how you know what you talking about? The hell you talking about? Like that. And then what happened was, after that back and forth, she hung up and everything. And then I would say maybe about 10, 15 minutes later, Conrad calls up and says that Malcolm was confused. And then he goes into this whole thing. But in the meantime, while Naim Akbar was talking about that, Dr. Lewis, Naim Akbar and them was influenced by Doc Ben and all of them. Mm-hmm. So he was going around talking about the Nation of Islam or Muslim stuff, but he was talking about, Africa, Egypt, all of that kind of stuff. Right. So Naim Akbar said that we were Africans. And Conrad said, no, we ain't no Africans. He said, not based on a continent that was named after Leo Africanus. And when I heard that, I was like, oh shit, that is not. No, I didn't call in. What I did, I wrote a letter to Conrad. Oh, okay. And gave him all of the reference material, this, that, and the other. But he never responded. So I was cool about it. Yeah, it was cool. But what had happened was, most people know me from the book business. I used to be in the book business. So I met him at Brookdale College in New Jersey. I was the official bookseller for the event. And when he came, I talked to him about it. He said, oh yeah, I remember the letter. I said, yeah. I said, well, I guess you remember you was wrong, right? So he said to me, he said, what do you mean? And when I told him the story, this, that, and the other, he said, oh, well, I got to go look it up and this, that, and the other. I said, I respect that. I said, but do me a favor. After you look it up and you read it, do me a favor. Don't mention it again. In other words, when you find out truth, that means that you need to discard that shit you talking. You know what I mean? So, right there. Yeah, so after that, I never had, I never seen him again, but he never mentioned, I never heard him talk about it. Ever, not like that. I never had heard him use Leo Africanus as the origin of how Africa got its name. You know what I mean? So.
He peddling Christianity.
Hey, look, I don't have a problem with what a person does, you know.
That's what he said, he got to know.
Yeah, but remember this: everybody uses what they use for their benefit.
That's it.
Listen, Nat Turner used it. You know, Denmark Vesey used it. Gabriel Prosser used it. You know, everybody. Marcus Garvey used it.
Now
You know, anybody know what kind of Christian Marcus Garvey was?
That's old, but they could give me that old time religion.
Yes.
I'm not.
Right, but the issue is that the old time religion was only for a certain few, because everybody didn't get it. In other words, most of them individuals, they were going on with the Negro Christianity, and that's the one they went with. There was only a few individuals who took the concepts, the stories, and used them as liberation tools for their own particular conditions. So when you talk about Denmark Vesey or Gabriel Prosser or Frederick Douglass or any of them, they decided to use those particular radical approaches to, you know, bondage and control and leadership and all of that, and use it for their personal benefit, versus, you know, other individuals used it as, in this case, assimilationists. What's the difference between somebody what's his name? Absalom Jones and what's the name? Oh God, I can't remember his name. James Allen, the guy that started the AME Church. Is that good Christianity or bad Christianity? You understand what I'm saying? It's based on what works for you at the time. You know, I mean, what Christianity would you have liked? Would you like Martin Luther King's Christianity or Vernon John's Christianity?
Vernon John for me.
Yeah, she said Vernon John's because she know Vernon John went and got that gun and told him to listen. You come over here and I'm gonna treat you like you treat me. Right. Versus Martin Luther King had a different approach. What kind? No, that wasn't his approach. See, you gotta go check. You gotta go check it. Who was the leader of the civil rights movement who was the spiritual leader of the civil rights movement in America?
Come on now.
The spiritual leader.
Yeah, crickets.
That means no, not even close. I'll tell you, it don't make a difference, because when you talk about the time period, when we say the civil rights movement, most of us are not talking about the origin of it. They're talking about when it became popular to them. Right. So when we say the civil rights movement, most of us are talking about the bus boycotts, the voters registration drives, all of that. See, y'all don't remember this. America didn't really become America as we know it, or should we thought it to be, meaning this multi-racial, whatever it's so on, until 1965. All that shit that happened before that, I'm talking about from 1619 and all of that, you know, and 1619 is a joke to me. I mean, it's really a joke. And the reason that is because it gives you this impression as if though 1619 is when black people got here.
It was already here.
Shit year we was.
Was it in the 1400s?
Wait, not even before. Listen to this. The Portuguese and the Spanish was here way before any English got here.
That's true.
Right. Remember, this place we call New York was New Amsterdam. It was a Dutch colony. Right. Who was talking? It was Ray was talking about the Irish, but he don't realize that the Irish and the black people was like that. Don't you know Seneca Village it wasn't all black. It was Irish and German too. Yeah. No, when you talk about Harlem was Irish and Germans, Jews and Italians. Before there was any black people in Harlem.
That's true.
Philip Payton is the individual that brought black people to Harlem.
Yeah, I remember you told us that.
That's right. Phil is the man.
That's like the residencies and all of that.
That's right. Well, he was that bought real estate. The African American Real Estate Committee. company. And that particular company literally revolutionized. It's like saying Chinatown and Little Italy.
Exactly.
Anybody ever here been to Little Italy? Anybody?
Yeah.
Little Italy? You can be here. This is Little Italy. You stand right here on Little Italy on Canal Street and look across the street, and that's Chinatown.
Chinatown.
Now, anybody here know how Little Italy got its name?
No, but I know it's getting little.
Yo, but listen to this. This Little Italy got its name because Little Italy wasn't Little Italy, it was Little Africa. Prior to that, the South Village, or what you call Washington Square Park, and Greenwich Village was called Little Africa.
Really?
From that time all the way to Canal Street, you had Little Africa. You had the Tenderloin district. When Africans came here, we literally congregated toward the southern regions of this particular state. That means we were all the way south, and then we began to move in a northern direction.
Was it by Wall Street? I mean, by the southern part of Manhattan?
Well, no, that too, but look, you got Weepsville is Canarsie.
Right.
Right. You got Little Africa, which is Greenwich Village. You got the Tenderloin, which is what we would call Midtown.
34th Street, 42nd.
Right. Seneca Village is Central Park, from 82nd Street to 89th Street on the west side. On the west side. Then further north of that, you had San Juan Hill. San Juan Hill went specifically before you go to what we today call 110th Street to Harlem, anywhere between 67th Street to 77th Street. Now, these is all black areas. All black areas prior to Harlem. There's no Harlem yet. And then Philip Payton and them individuals, that's when they start bringing individuals into Harlem because Jewish Joe could build buildings in Harlem and couldn't get them filled.
They couldn't get them, yeah, right.
Right.
That's in the book, the Ghetto, the Making of Harlem, Ghetto, the Making of Harlem.
Yeah, that's by Trotsky.
Right.
Trotsky, that white boy did real good research. But the thing about that was that Philip Payton did his movement based on segregation. It was his form of segregation, because what they was doing, they was creating a segregated environment, and what they was accused, right now the community in Harlem is accusing gentrification of Harlem. But they don't remember when they were gentrifying the Italians, the Jews, the Irish, and the what's the name, the people. They don't remember that. And the reason that is because they don't have an idea when most black people got to Harlem. Because Harlem was a Dutch colony. Harlem. It actually wasn't called Harlem. It was called New Harlem. N-E-U-W. That was how you spell it. N-E-U-W. Harlem. H-A-A-R-E-L-M. Dutch. That's right. New Amsterdam. You see what I'm saying? We don't get it in regard to that.
And they charged us, they couldn't rent the buildings and they charged us more.
Well, they did that all the time. The difference was, see, what Philip Payton's position was that he told the white guys that, look, I can fill them up. He said, and you'll make more money because, you know, you can charge black people more than what you're going to charge white people. But that was the common occurrence anywhere in the city. Right. Because they knew they could get away with doing that to black people. There was no rules, no laws, none of that was in place in regard to that. So the book that you just shown, Leslie Alexander, she's the sister of Michelle Alexander, who wrote Jim Crow. You know, the new Jim Crow. That's her sister. That's her sister. Right. And this girl is, listen, she got a whole chapter in there on Seneca Village. It's one of the best ever written. You need to go. That's Africa or Americans. That's the name of the book.
It's African Echo Study Group came from Trust.
Yeah, and the issue is that this particular book literally shows you what it meant for Africans to understand how they had to literally leave their Africanness behind to become American. This is the book. This is a powerful piece of work. That's right. It's called African or American. The subtitle is called Black Identity and Political Activism in New York City, 1784 to 1861. Seneca Village started in 1825. This is a remember, we talking about slavery is in full effect when Seneca Village come into play.
Full effect.
We don't get it. And this,
What's the author's name?
Yeah.
oh, this
Trust,
is
show
Wesley
it.
Alexander.
Show it, Trust, let me put it.
So you telling me the Germans, the Jews,
The Italians.
Polish,
No Polish.
no Polish now.
Yeah.
Okay. and
All right, Trust.
The remaining, they came before these, they came to the harbor to do the Statue of Liberty.
Who?
I'm talking about the Europeans from Europe.
Some did, some didn't.
Oh, but they was there prior to the harbor and the statue coming there through the
Yeah, he got a book over there called Gangs in New York. Don't you know that where that place they call 5 Points? That 5 Points, a great deal of it was black area.
Yeah.
Oh, black area.
Blacks was there.
Yes.
City Hall.
That's it.
And Chambers Street. Yeah.
So when we talk about the early beginnings of these areas, a lot of times we don't know when black people was before Harlem. Most of us don't even have a clue. Most of them don't even realize that a lot of people that actually were movers and shakers in Harlem, they lived in Brooklyn. Look at Alonzo Schomburg. He lived in Brooklyn. Think about that. And the citadel of the activist community in New York was the Crossroads. Now we call it 125th Street and 7th Avenue. Back then it was Lenox Avenue and 134th Street. What do they have on Lenox Avenue and 134th Street? Anybody know? It's a big building there. Actually two, but say that again?
Schomburg.
Schomburg Library. Right, you got the Schomburg Library on one side and then you got the hospital on the left, on across the street. Right. Now, but the Schomburg Library is the corner. That corner there used to be Speaker's Corner. You go to Speaker's Row. Soapbox speaking. That means people on ladder speaking to the community started right there.
That was your guy, that Howard, somebody used Howard something.
No, you talking about Hubert Henry Harrison. Right.
And New York Chase. He said Chase or like built it. Chase. Used to be J.P. Morgan, right?
Oh, J.P. Morgan, right, yeah. Well, they those are families that hooked up with one another and literally began to, how can I say, to consolidate their investments and interests. And it's no different. A Rockefeller marrying a Chase is no different than a Windsor in London marrying a German. A Mountbatten. Y'all know that the Queen of England is not English.
She's German.
That's right. Why is she German?
Because her family was German.
Well, not just that. There's something that go further back than that. What are English people?
Germans.
That's correct. They're not English. The word Anglo and Saxon, Anglo is a German tribe and Saxon is a German tribe. There's a difference between England and Great Britain. You ever seen an English flag? You ever seen an English flag? Not a British flag, an English flag.
No, can't say that.
See, you've probably seen it, you just didn't know what it was. And a lot of times most of the time you've seen it in old movies. It still exists today. It's still flown today. But most people don't recognize it because they are being bombarded with the British flag. The English flag is white, all white, and it's got a red cross on it. That's the English flag.
Oh, okay, right, from the old movie.
That's correct.
Right, okay, yeah,
Right.
right.
And then a British flag is blue, white, and red.
Right.
That's the British. What's the difference between a British flag and an English flag?
Territory.
Territory is correct, but the British flag is a consolidation. It's a, what do you call it? A confederation.
Oh, okay.
That's England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and English, Wales, Northern Ireland, and what's the other one?
That's the three.
No, it's
There's four.
Scotland.
Oh, Scotland.
Yeah. Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and England. Those three, those four. That's Great Britain.
Right, that's the
Is it
that's
called
what
the
makes
British
great.
Isles, right?
Huh?
Is it considered the British Isles?
Yeah, they use that term, definitely. But we're just talking about a period when England was a nation state within itself via when it made this collaboration between these other small states of surrounding islands. And the thing is that it's like America. We have this idea that America is English. But that's not what the history say. The history say that there was Portuguese here, and it's like if I said to you, what's a Latino? Anybody know what language do Latinos speak?
Allegedly Puerto Rican.
Spanish, most of them. Most of them.
Why did I know?
Latinos speak Spanish.
The word Latino comes from the root word Latin.
East New York.
The word Latino comes from the root word Latin America.
Right.
And the root of the word identifies Portuguese, Spanish, and French.
French.
Spanish.
Right. In Martinique, what language do they speak?
French.
That's correct. So when you think about Latino, most of us, again, this is the issue of hijacking terms. Most of us only think of Spanish. But let me explain something to you. If you go to Spain right now and said to them, I'm Latino, to them, these are people in Spain. You're not Spanish. Spanish means you were born and raised in Spain and you speak Spanish.
Right. That's true.
A person that lives in Central America are called Latinos. They are looked at as the bastards of Spain.
Doesn't matter what color is your skin.
They don't care.
Let me just say this. I went to a Spanish restaurant, authentic Spanish restaurant, with a friend of mine who's Puerto Rican. We ordered, and I let her order. That Spanish person after all. Just being honest with
Yes.
you. What? Because they don't say after all, like you're not Spanish.
Right.
Like me. You're Latino. We're
That's
different.
right. That's right.
You might speak the same language. We're not the same. And
In
that's a
other
restaurant.
words, the only way they got to be Spanish is because they were colonized.
That's it.
Well, how did it become, my friend said the ones that made it to America, and I'm talking about from Puerto Rico, they're Norican. What the hell?
No, that's
New York.
Not New York stuff.
yeah, that's different. That's New York. Only New
Same
York.
term.
New York.
Nuyorican.
Nuyorican means you are a Puerto Rican that grew up in New York.
But I'm black, but I'm Borican. I'm Borican.
No, that's Boricua.
That's
Boricua.
Right. Again, these are all terms that are uniquely associated with a culture in New York, which is something different completely. And most Spanish people in certain areas know, but you don't have the same kind of input if you go to LA. Because in LA, they ain't talking about Puerto Ricans, they talking about Chicanos. You know, it's a whole different ballgame. You know, a lot of y'all see Malcolm X in the zoot suits, that's Chicano.
Yeah.
Zoot suits are not a black dress. Suits come from Chicanos.
Yeah, Mexican.
Right.
Oh, wait. Are you sure of that?
That's right. In other words, there was a back and forth between that because a lot of people think that what's his name? Cap Calloway and
Creates that.
that's well, not him personally, but a whole group of individuals in retrospect created the whole dress. But if you look at the material, you'll find out that there was a collaboration in the early days with the black community and Chicanos in regard to that dress. And if you go look at the history of Chicanos, you'll find out something real different. But again, don't take my word. I'm just the messenger. You know, go check it out.
But there's another twist. Hispanics now. Where did the term Hispanics?
It comes from the word Hispaniola, which was the place that the first Europeans came to, which we today call Haiti and Santo Domingo. Now, the funniest thing is, it's all the same place. Just like, you know, Africa was all the same place. The only problem is that we made it something that it wasn't. In other words, we create a term called Africa. Africans ain't never heard about it. You get what I'm saying? In other words, they didn't know that y'all did this. You know what I mean? So if you went to Africa, they looked at themselves not based on a continental term, because they didn't understand what a continent was. Right. So they looked at themselves as Yoruba, Igbo, Hausas, Tukalas, Puls, Mandings, Soninke. That's how they looked at it, as national groupings. That's how they looked at themselves. But the problem is we try to transport our common day current ideas into a historical context. It don't work. I know people, a lot of people, they try to do it, but it just don't work. And the issue is that when you begin to understand the mechanics of history, forget black history, white history, women history, forget all that. Let's just talk about the mechanics of history itself and what it takes to get it right. The object is we want to get it right so that when we share this with individuals, that it have its roots in factual evidence, not in, well, I heard, or it could be, or it sounds like, you know. Like I asked the guy about the John Hanson, I said, well, how could a guy become president at a time where everybody that was black was being oppressed? And guess what he said? He said, this is hidden knowledge.
Okay.
Mathematics. Before you move on,
He said, what did he say? I wasn't hear that.
He said it's hidden knowledge, that it's not something everybody knows. So I said, the reason they don't know it, because it was false, it wasn't true. I said, there's a lot of information that is circulated that you think is, and nobody is negating the fact that through history, there were information that was suppressed. We know that. The issue is, what you want to do is get the evidence in order to overturn it, not to go around and to reinforce values and principles that what you're talking about is correct. So you don't go around and say, well, it's bad for him to do it, and then you go and do it.
Right.
And before you move on, these applications you see on these job applications, on city applications, are they statistical? And for, you know, when they ask you questions
those things
about color, Hispanic, non-black,
non-white. But that's not scientific, it's political. Everything that's done in that context is political, so they're trying to get a political benefit from it. Either they're trying to get something political from it, or they're trying to limit something political in regard to it. So if they're saying, well, we don't want this particular group to have too many people, so we'll take black people and we'll cut them in half. They said, well, how you gonna do that? He said, well, we'll make these people over here biracial. They black, but we gonna make them biracial.
So that's another application. If you darker than night, put white.
Right.
How many Africans addressing that?
Put white.
Yeah, it's okay. The only thing is that when it's time to get that bank account, they're gonna look up there and they're gonna say,
Reparations come through.
He said,
Ray, you don't give up that Indian status, right?
down here it says you have whites. Could you explain that for me? Let me go, man, because I get a little bit on, at least a little bit on Pan-Africanism.
Okay.
All right, now, in regard to Pan-Africanism, why I decided to address this particular issue was because I think that one of the key factors about Pan-Africanism is that we have a misconception on what Pan-African actually is and the mechanics of it versus what we will call a Pan-Africanist. And what I mean by that is that there are individuals who work consistently, diligently for Pan-Africanism. And then there are individuals who actually are supporting Pan-Africanism in that direction, but they are not Pan-Africanists in a clinical context. Now, let me explain what I mean. There's a difference between somebody like, here's a good example.
He closed the bathroom door.
This is a good friend of mine, Bruce Hamlet, did a research study on Pan-Africanism about a year ago. And he went and did a little background research and came up with a particular format. And this is the format, some of the format that I'm using this evening. So thanks to brother Bruce. And on the front page of this particular brief essay has a number of Pan-Africanists who they believe are Pan-Africanists. And I would say they all Pan-Africanists, but not all of them are clinical Pan-Africanists. So I'm gonna read their names, and then I'm gonna tell you somewhat the difference. You have Marcus Garvey. Oh, let me get my glasses on. Hold on. You have Marcus Garvey, 1887 to 1940. Kwame Nkrumah, 1909 to 1972. W.E.B. Du Bois, 1868 to 1963. Hakim Adi, he's a what do you call it? Author, a writer from London, England. Malcolm X, 1925. Now, some of these individuals, like Hakim Adi, his name is on here not because, well, I would call him in direction of Pan-African, but he wrote a book called Pan-Africanism. So that's why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Adi, A-D-I. Right. And he's on here because of that. But again, this is also for a lot of other. Malcolm X, 1925 to 1965. Marika Sherwood. George Pattonmore. Anybody know George Pattonmore's real name?
George Patton.
George Padmore. P-A-D-M-O-R-E. Padmore.
Trinidad?
That's correct. His real name is Malcolm Nurse. Malcolm Nurse, correct. Malcolm Nurse. Edward Wilmot Blyden, 1832 to 1912. Henry Sylvester Williams, 1869 to 1911. Robert Sobukwe, 1924 to 1978. Nnamdi Azikiwe, 1924 to 1996. Amilcar Cabral, 1924 to 1973. C.L.R. James, 1901 to 1989. Stokely Carmichael, 1941 to 1998. Walter Rodney, 1942 to 1980. J.E. Casely Hayford, 1866 to 1930. Martin Delaney, 1812 to 1885. Tujahadeen Abdul Rahim, 1961 to 2009. Julius Nyeri, 1922 to 1999. Samia Nkrumah. Dwayne Wong. Horace Campbell. John Henrik Clark. Patrice Lumumba. Jomo Kenyatta. Dwayne Wong, I already got that one. And Alice Kinlock. Now, that's quite a few names. The problem is, out of all of these individuals, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I would say 8 of them are clinical Pan-Africans.
And what makes you clinical?
And I'll tell you why. The concept of clinical Pan-Africanist versus a Pan-Africanist in philosophy only. That means you have a philosophy of Pan-Africanism and you might be working toward those aims, but you're not bringing into play all Africans. The word Pan-Africanism means pan, all, and Africans. Right, so there was a period of time where certain individuals went out and they actually made it their business to go out and try to get all Africans together and sit down and come up with a plan of action in order to address the challenges that confronted Africans on the continent and in the diaspora.
Like Marcus was saying Garvey.
No, that's different. Marcus had Marcus organization, that was it. Who did he go out and get? He didn't get nobody. He used his organization to create the things that he wanted, that he decided. He didn't go get no Africans and come and say, we're going to work with them.
But the reason I say that, I thought he was the only man, despite not having computers, was able to gather and unite just crazy numbers of black folks all over the world.
He did, but the issue again, like I said before, there's a difference between clinical Pan-Africanism. The difference is that I went to Africa and I got individuals who are struggling for the same aims, goals, and objectives that I am in those areas. We came together, we formed an organization, and we're going to go out and fight against colonialism and imperialism in order to free ourselves from this situation.
And I see you.
In other words, that's correct.
Happened over and over in this.
No. The issue is just like I told you about Marcus Garvey going to Africa. I told you he didn't take not one person, but we know him for what? Back to Africa. You get what I'm saying? This is not a bad thing. It's just being able to look at the material for what it is and what it has to offer. We're not saying that Marcus Garvey didn't do anything.
That's not a put down.
No, it's just putting things in the right, proper context. And in this case, the issue is that, did he do great things? Of course, beyond what could be imagined. But the problem is, it's not what we think it is. You get what I'm saying? So when we talk about Pan-Africanism, we're talking about literally the Pan-African Congresses. You're talking about one Pan-African Conference, which was the original 1900s, H. Sylvester Williams, and then you have four Congresses that come after that W.E.B. Du Bois led every one of them. Now, I have here a book. This book is called The History of Pan-African Congress. The difference about this book, what's significant about this book, is that this book is written by the individuals who were involved. This book is written by all the players that were involved, that created Pan-Africanism on an international basis. That means the individuals that were involved, like John DeGraff Johnson, Nnamdi Azikiwe, W.E.B. Du Bois, Ross McConnell, Jomo Kenyatta, Kwame Nkrumah, George Patton, and many others. We're not talking about somebody who's writing about Du Bois. We're talking about Du Bois writing about himself. See how small this book is? This book comes from the 1945 Pan-African Congress. That's what this book is. This book was edited by George Patton, and the father of this particular conference was W.E.B. Du Bois. Written by him, not somebody writing about him. This is something different. As a matter of fact, this is a reissued copy, and it was reissued in 1963. As a matter of fact, in 1963, W.E.B. Du Bois was 95 years old. And what that particular material represented was the transformation of this concept of Pan-Africanism from a philosophical concept to an actual event. It literally transformed those conferences to liberation movements, colonial liberation movements, independent movement that literally catapulted the names that you see on this page to heads of state in Africa. Kwame Nkrumah became the president. Jomo Kenyatta became the president. Nnamdi Azikiwe became the president. That's different than Marcus Garvey. I'm not saying Marcus Garvey is not good or what he did was not good. I'm saying is that what he did was on this side and what they did is on this side. Now these Pan-African Congresses, there were 9 of them, and they go from 1900 to 2014. That's the last one they had. And those particular concepts represented the very nature of black people taking arms up against those individuals who were our oppressors. And we decide to unify, to create a confederation, to create a unit that could address the issues from different places all at one time. And this is what it produced. So let me just give you a little idea.
And when you finish with that, Gaddafi and Alomé Bragg, where did they put it?
They listen. That's on a whole nother level. But anyway, as you can say, it says the history of Pan-Africanism. I mean, the history of the Pan-African Congress, and then on the inside, it says this says first edition published in 1947, second edition with new material 1963. That's just the version you have here. It said, and this particular is, they have what are called goodwill messages from some of the individuals that were involved. And I'm going to read to you some of these goodwill messages to give you an idea on what we are talking about. It says goodwill message from Nnamdi Azikiwe. Anybody know who Nnamdi Azikiwe is?
I heard the name, but I'm not quite sure.
He was eventually be the former leader of Nigeria.
Okay.
Nnamdi Azikiwe. Now, it says, my good friend George Padmore, alias Malcolm I. Nurse, was one of the most outstanding protagonists of Pan-Africanism. And I am certain that the decision to reprint the report of the 1945 Pan-African Congress held in Manchester, published under the title, The History of the Pan-African Congress, will be received with gratification everywhere. The roots of Pan-Africanism can be traced to the post-slavery period and during the partition of Africa. When did the partition of Africa take place? Anybody know? Come on now, come on. Partition of Africa. The big cake.
When they divided up at that conference, and they divided up those white folks.
Go ahead.
The Belgian conference.
The Berlin Conference.
Berlin conference.
Right, the Berlin Conference. The issue is, it was called the Berlin Conference, but the Belgians are the ones that put it on.
Right.
Now, it says that the roots of Pan-Africanism can be traced to the post-slavery period and during the partition of Africa. The first Pan-African Congress was held in London in 1900, but the Pan-African Congress held in Manchester in 1945 marked the turning point in the Pan-Africanism for a passive to an active stage. In other words, it was the 1945 Pan-African Congress at that culmination that literally set the ball in motion.
World War II, right?
After that, that's correct.
That's right.
Which they had during that was the peace conference that they had, the International Peace Conference, right? And the Africans literally carried on the backs of that conference in order to put this conference together. It says, this obvious transmutation in the character of the movement was precipitated by the Second World War. The war years had brought a new kind of awareness to many old and young African leaders of the indignities suffered by the black man everywhere, and especially in his own home in Africa. The time was ripe for positive action. Among the resolutions which were passed at that epoch-making Pan-African Congress of 1945 was the following extract from the Declaration to Colonial Peoples. Quote, "We affirm the right of all colonial peoples to control their own destiny. All colonies must be free from foreign imperialist control, whether political or economic." That's powerful words. at a time where most every African state was in bondage,
Exactly.
in servitude, under the foot.
Of somebody else.
That's correct.
White folks.
It says Africa has gone a long way since the adoption of this historic resolution, and the time is not far distant when this great continent will be rid completely of all colonialist elements and enemies of progress lurking within its borders. Notwithstanding the futile efforts of the misguided racial minority is Southern and Eastern Africa, who still struggle to uphold the tottering fortress of a decadent and moribund imperialism. What Africa has achieved today is a fitting tribute to men like Julian Africanus Horton, Edward Wilmot Blyden, Marcus A. Garvey. See, they even talk about Garvey. It says William E. B. Du Bois, Casely Hayford, Hubert Macaulay, George Patmore, and their successors who were pioneers in this great struggle to restore the pristine dignity of men in the continent of Africa. Now, mind you, if you notice that they mentioned Marcus Garvey's name.
But he wasn't there.
He wasn't there. But guess what? Amy Ashford Garvey was there, and she was the secretary.
She was.
Yes, she was. She was the mover and shaker. Not Amy Jacques Garvey, Amy Ashford. This is the first wife versus the second wife. The first wife was pure 100% Pan-Africanism. She used to own a restaurant in London years ago, where all of these guys that you see on this book's names, they were students in Europe at the time. And they would go to her restaurant and they would sit there and talk shop about what Africa needed and what black people needed at the time in order to liberate themselves from the yoke of colonialism and imperialism.
Sound like Mackey's coffee shop.
That's exactly what it was. Back in the day, we had the same thing here. Dr. Ben used to hold court at Pan. Remember that? Shit, you go up there, he be sitting there, brothers be eating grits and eggs, and they be getting the history of the world.
Coffee.
All at one time. You listen, the places where we received some of the best information in our lives wasn't in formal institutions. They were on street corners, backyards, stoops. Places that you would never assume information of that caliber would be, disseminated and circulated. When we talk about Hubert Harrison, here was a man that was so gifted at knowledge and oratory that he used his soapbox street corner speak right underneath J.P. Morgan's office in the sub-treasury down in Wall Street. He was so good at it that one day he galvanized 11,000 people right on the street corner. 11,000.
Wow.
On a street corner.
And let me tell you, this is what was the thing about it. So I'm doing some research and I'm going to the Schomburg Library to look up some information about this event that happened. 11,000 people on a street corner. So it's in a New York Times article, 1920 something. But anyway, I'm looking up and I find the article and I'm reading the article, and as I turn the page, I find that on the back of the page is another article called Garvey Must Go. Now this is the New York Times. This ain't the Negro World. This is the New York Times. So I was like, right, so I'm like, what the hell is this? So I look at it and I find out that it's an article written about Marcus Garvey from, what's my man, A. Philip Randolph. A. Philip Randolph and Chandler Owens, they had an organization, and most of them were communists.
Yes.
And, I give them a great deal of credit because my great uncle was a communist in Harlem at the time. And,
Did he hold the card?
Say that again?
Did he hold the card?
My uncle?
He
Yeah, he never had a card, and then also people like Paul Robeson never had a card.
Right, they attended a few of me.
Right, but his wife had a card. But what I was just getting ready to say is that my uncle had a card because he was the secretary of the group in Harlem. But anyway, oh God, I just lost my chain of thought.
A. Philip Randolph.
Oh, A. Philip Randolph. Yeah.
Newspaper in the back page.
Yeah. A. Philip Randolph and then was in the newspaper. He was talking about Garvey must go because he called Garvey a charlatan, and that he was just trying to take people's money and giving them a whole bunch of nonsense. So what had happened was the UNIA, members was across the street while him and Chandler Owens was standing on soapbox, talking to the Harlem community, and a few of them went over to A. Philip Randolph and told him, he said, look, man, you better leave Marcus Garvey name out your mouth, man. Leave that alone. You don't want to do that. Just leave that shit alone like that. So A. Philip Randolph didn't want to hear nothing. He kept talking this, that, and the other. So the next day, him and Chandler Owens is in their headquarters because they used to publish a magazine, a newsletter called The Messenger. And while they was there present, a package came in, So Chandler Owens get the package, they open it up, and inside the box is a white man's hand cut off with a letter that said, this is a white man's hand. Next time it could be your cut off head if you keep talking about Mr. Garvey. So after that was over, Chandler Owens kept doing what he was doing, this, that, and the other, and they got into a big beef. They never went into fisticuffs or anything like that, but there was always very strong tension between these particular groups. And another thing too is that we have to realize that in Harlem there were a variety of different groups, and they all didn't get along together at the same time. We have this idea because they was black and they was working for some aim, goals, and objectives. No, that wasn't the case. It's like the NAAC versus the Urban League.
Or CORE.
That's right. Same. Never mind. Even though they came at different times, Urban League and the NAACP are more closer together. Or I would actually say the Niagara movement and the NAACP. Even though a great deal of the Niagara movement
Were they some of them the same?
Well, they didn't become the same until later. In the beginning, they didn't want to join. See, remember, the Niagara movement pretty much was the brainchild of Monroe Trotter.
Right.
The problem is that when Du Bois came in, and they were in on the founding level, they took over the organization and they began to shape it and mold it specifically in a black nationalist kind of context. In other words, it was an organization that you had to be black to get into, which was just the opposite of the NAACP.
Exactly.
The NAACP was started by 4 white people, and they drafted W.E.B. and a few other individuals to be a part of it. But when they decided to do that, Du Bois and them were already in the Niagara movement. And Monroe Trotter said, him and Ida B. Wells said, we ain't joining nothing, because Ida B. Wells wasn't in the Niagara movement.
Oh, she wasn't?
No, because there wasn't no women in it. Because Monroe Trotter didn't want no women, and Du Bois did. Du Bois said, look, man, you gotta have women. If you don't have no women, what the hell, how you gonna get shit done? Shit. You think these jokers gonna get shit done? No, you need some women to get some real work done. Right. So Monroe Trotter, him and Monroe Trotter fought about it, and eventually, he lost out. That's Monroe Trotter, and he divorced himself out of the organization. If you notice, for a long time, he never joined the NAACP until late, and he never stayed long before he eventually divorced himself from the NAACP. Because his position was he didn't like white people being in positions of authority and power. And you got to remember, Du Bois come from an environment where there was white people. I mean, he grew up in a mostly white town.
Yes.
You know who sent him to school? White people.
White.
Yeah, we don't realize that. We don't realize that his first education was at Fisk, but he eventually went to Harvard, but he also went to Berlin, you know, where he studied German and all kinds of philosophy and all kinds of shit. A lot of times we don't really understand the power and the background and the influence of what Du Bois really was. I mean, there's nobody more Pan-Africanist, nobody than Du Bois. Not that I know of, you know, and actually worked for it. That means that he went out and got Africans from all over Africa, as well as from the Caribbean and South America to come together to formulate an organization to address the challenges that confronted Africans on the continent and in the diaspora. Nobody had ever did that.
And interesting, he knew the psychology. He said the black man we have a double conscience.
And that's right. And he was very, very studious about doing these things. But let me go on and read this last little piece. This is the goodwill message from W.E.B. Du Bois. So I want you to listen to this. Today is the 95th year of my life. I am happy to write a word of preference to the short history of the Pan-African Congress, written by my friend George Padmore, and containing much of my own writing. It carries messages that must not die, but should be passed on to aid mankind and to inspire the darker races of man to see themselves of one blood with all human beings. I especially remember that great Pan-Africanist Congress of 1945, held in Manchester, England, whose co-secretaries, these were the secretaries of the Pan-African Congress in 1945. The co-authors were the Republic of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and the valiant, intrepid leader Jomo Kenyatta. Think about that. They were the secretaries, Jomo Kenyatta and Kwame Nkrumah. Woo. Good night. It said that who will not stop until Kenya has attained its full independence. George Padmore was the organizing spirit of that Congress. There were many others there with whom I have worked through the years and whom the world should remember, for that was a decisive year in determining the freedom of Africa. I welcome the decision to reprint the report of the 1945 Pan-African Congress. The Congress was a landmark in the history of the African people's struggle for unity and freedom, and I am proud of the fact that I took part in its proceedings. Pan-Africanism has always influenced my political thinking as well as the political work that I have been able to do. The Pan-African movement has was always of importance to our continent, but now that the area of freedom is becoming vaster and vaster every day, the importance of the movement is increasingly tremendously. I am sure that the report of the 1945 Congress will find a permanent place in the political literature of Africa. It will serve another youthful purpose, and that is to remind us of the debt we all owe to the pioneering work of our late lamented friend and colleague George Padmore. Long live unity and Pan-Africanism. Uhuru. That's W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, again, he's letting you know the role that George Padmore played, the role that the very nature of that 1945 Congress played in the formulation of the foundation of liberation movements that would eventually become those independent movements that would free many African nations, you know, eventually in the late 50s and the early 60s. And it also showed that they were reaching out to individuals outside their comfort zone, outside their own borders. And this is what led to that particular beginning of the liberation movement. And no, go ahead.
40 years later, 90s.
Again, this is what I'm saying is that we don't understand the significance of the role that played in the liberation movements. Think of what the liberation movements in Africa did for the Black Power movement here in America. You get what I'm saying? The civil rights movement here in America. Y'all don't know that it was Martin Luther King Jr. that was at the inauguration of Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
You know, people like Richard Wright was at the inauguration. In other words, Martin Luther King was at the inauguration of Kwame Nkrumah, not Malcolm X. See, and we never associate Martin Luther King with black liberation movements. Think about that.
That's true.
So when you think about particulars in regard to personalities, a lot of times we don't think of what role these individuals played via the time in which those events were taking place. You see? So, go ahead.
And is that the individual that you was mentioning that was the leader, spiritual leader of the civil rights movement?
Oh, the spiritual leader. No, that's well, I can't remember his name. He wrote a book called Jesus and the Disinherited. Hold on, let me see.
Oh, that's deep.
Jesus and the who?
This is inheritance.
Yeah, this is this is important stuff.
Yeah, because you never gave us the name.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
I was gonna ask
That's
you.
my fault.
No, it's all right because you hit me with the question. But now,
Because the thing got, so I guess he was the religious leader. There's a difference, right?
no,
That's correct.
The religious leader.
Yeah, but the spiritual, but and he inspired.
Howard Thurman, that's who it is. Howard Thurman.
In the book
Put it in your name. I'll tell you this. Martin Luther King would not know Gandhi if it wasn't for Howard Thurman. Howard Thurman was the individual. He was such a spiritualist that he said any Christian that didn't meditate wasn't a real Christian. Howard Thurman was listen, on a whole nother level. The late Jesse Jackson just said, he said I wouldn't go nowhere without Jesus and the Disinherited. Nowhere. Every major preacher, they had that book in their hand. Jesus and the Disinherited. I'm telling you. And I'll tell you what you do. You go to YouTube and you look for a documentary called Backs Against the Wall. I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. Backs Against the Wall. Howard Thurman. Let me see.
He wasn't an attorney, was he?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Backs Against the Wall is the name of the documentary.
Thurman?
Yeah, Howard Thurman.
Yeah, Howard Thurman.
T-H-U-R-M.
That's right.
Howard Thurman. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's T-H-U-R-M-A-N. Right. Howard Thurman. Now, what I want y'all to do, when your next lecture,
25th.
25th. So when y'all come back on the 25th, I want y'all to tell Ray who Howard Thurman was and what role he played. And remember, Martin Luther King is a kid. Howard Thurman's roommate at Howard University was Daddy King. And then the other thing is that most of the credit that is given to what's his name, to Martin Luther King in regard to the Montgomery bus boycott should be given to the women
Right.
who were the real strugglers.
Right, the
And
domestics.
huh?
Domestics.
That's right. That's right. The women who were the real strugglers,
Right.
and it should be given to Vernon Johns.
Okay.
In other words, everything that is attributed to Martin Luther King,
She really was.
he inherited it from Vernon Johns. He inherited it from Vernon Johns. And there's a made for TV movies done on Vernon Johns where what's his name plays the role.
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones plays an excellent role in the portrayal of Vernon Johns, which is something you really want to see. But I want you to go and read the real history of Vernon Johns, so you'll get an insight in regard to who were the real individuals that struggled against. It's like talking about the NAACP without talking about Robert Williams. Like, how can you do that? Shit, it's impossible.
Right.
This is the NAACP with guns. You see? Not that other NAACP. This is the NAACP with guns. You know what I'm saying? He was so sick, he was trying to integrate a pool in, I think it was in North Carolina or South Carolina, one of them. And what had happened was Robert Williams and his kids and them was, part of the program. So when they went to the pool, he said that the white kids would get out the pool and told them that they couldn't get in the pool. And then he said that when he got there, his kids told him that the white boys had came with guns and shit. So Robert Williams said, no problem. He came back, he had his boys, and everybody was strapped like a brand new money. And they was like, well, these niggas here is different. Right. So I guess he stood up to them, straight up, toe to toe. And guess what happened? The NAACP put him out.
Yep.
They put him out. Robert Williams was a bad man. He went from the NAACP, listen there. Guess where you go next? The Nation of Islam.
Oh, Lord.
But he never became a Muslim, but he became, listen to this, he became a national correspondent for Muhammad Speaks newspaper. That means he became a correspondent for Muhammad Speaks newspaper. Right. Guess what his first major international interview was? No, Mao Zedong. It's the first time a black man had ever got to literally interview Mao Zedong. And it was Robert Williams. That's right. People don't,
He did the book, Negroes with Guns.
That's right, Negroes with Guns. That's a bad piece. Real bad piece. But these are the things that you want to avail yourself when we're talking about modern day Pan-Africanism. And what I'm saying is that there are people that are Pan-Africanists in concept. That means in philosophy. And then there are people that are Pan-Africanists in action.
So we're giving guns.
No, not guns. I'm talking about in organizing. The issue is about organizing. So let's take a group like, there's a difference between, let's take a group like December 12th. Y'all heard of them? Right. That is a group that is Pan-Africanist in organizing. That means they go around the world with other Africans and they go to particular conferences and they deal with issues that's confronting African people at home and abroad. That's different than the UNIA, who's saying that I'm working toward Africa, but it's from my point of view. It's my organizational perspective. That's it. When you have a Pan-African Congress, it's like bringing all of these individuals to a conference like a UN, and y'all sitting down and addressing issues that confront the whole body, not just one group. You see? And this is what becomes, paramount in the structure. So that's why what's significant about the Pan-African Congresses is that there were actual physical gains that were made after that.
Yes.
That means after those Congresses, physical gains actually made. People became presidents. Countries were taken back. Colonialists physically were thrown out, even though they were there financially and otherwise. But these were the beginnings of the evacuation of these colonial powers. That set in motion those particular issues. That's why from 1900 to 1945, those Congresses played such an important role, because they set in motion how we was going to address, and the only way we can do that was we all had to come together under one umbrella. You see, this is different than the OAU too. The OAU was also a conflict within itself. The Monrovia group against the Casablanca group. It was the United States of Africa the United States of Africa or the Africa United. Kwame Nkrumah, United States of Africa. He wanted one continent, 50 states. Not 50 countries, 50 states. Like the United States. Versus Nnamdi Azikiwe and those, they wanted Africa as a continent and each country as its own independent state. In other words, you had autonomy. The problem was that where we were at that time in Africa, the issue was we were so fragmented and so divided, we were more concentrated on our individual needs than the continental needs.
Right.
So that's why they opted for Nnamdi Azikiwe's. You ended up with the OAU, and eventually we lost.
Yeah.
We really lost. Think right now, if 1963 we made Africa one country. Think about that. Right now, Africa, you got 1,250,000,000 people in Africa.
Wow.
Think about that. Right down the street, India, 1,500,000,000. Right over across the street, you got China. They got 1,400,000,000. Don't you know that's 2/3 of the whole world?
There you go.
Black.
Mega.
Brother Trust, percolate. So that could have been possibly in 1963.
He said if it was.
Right. And I'm almost certain with that said, with your branch of information 2 years prior to that, and you mentioned him as well, Patrice Lumumba.
Yeah, Patrice, that was a tragic situation, very tragic. You know, a lot of people that played involved, black man was instrumental in that killing.
That's true.
Same thing with Malcolm, right?
Huh?
Same thing with Malcolm, right?
Well, no, I'm not. Malcolm, that was a little different, but I'm talking about in regard from the international, from the authoritative, the international point of view. In other words, Malcolm, you're talking about individuals that are fanning the flames versus the individuals who were actually involved in the killings. You know what I'm saying? The people that was involved in the killings, they were members of the Nation of Islam. Now the problem is that were they influenced and, swayed by the powers at be or the intelligence community? Of course, we all know that. But to say that the intelligence community did it alone, no. I call them, listen to this, I call them unknowing conspiracy, unknowing relationships.
Or useful idiots.
Well, I wouldn't say they was idiots, but they all was working for the same aims, goals, and objectives. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much what it is. So I'm gonna end there, and I hope y'all was able to.
Do a quick two questions. Anybody from Zoom want to ask Trust a question?
I also wanted to let y'all know I do have a couple of books here. They are all $7.
I'll take it.
Willie Lynch and what else? And that's it, I guess.
Anybody from Zoom want to ask Trust a question? Question from Zoom?
It's a little off the topic.
Hold up, Bill.
Okay.
Anybody from Zoom want to ask Trust a question?
I believe a statement was made about the international, the D12 versus, well, not versus, but UNIA.
That's correct.
They're both international.
Yeah, they're both international, but there's difference between those individuals who are working consistently on a current basis to address those particular issues. There are issues that deal with individuals working internationally, meaning that they are working with other individuals outside the country for one common goal.
Okay, somebody has some background noise in the background? Somebody has some noise in the background?
Governments and over 20-something countries.
Yeah, we talking about now. We're not talking about, I'm talking about when Marcus Garvey was in existence,
I'm so
not
sorry.
now.
Yes, thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
not now. Yeah, now it's different.
Thank you for answering my
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, well,
This may be a little off topic a little, but I'm still trying to pursue.
say it louder, so they can hear.
I'm still trying to pursue some understanding when you talk about they are our children, the Europeans. I understand it. But again, where is this Neanderthal link? Is that
Listen,
big behavior?
yeah,
Is that-
stop it.
Okay,
Just
stop it right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
I'm
And the
gonna-
issue is this, let me explain it to you.
Okay.
Don't look at Neanderthals as a particular part of the human Homo sapiens sapien line. They're not. There happen to be a different species in retrospect. The only difference is at a particular time in our evolution, they overlapped. That particular overlap period, there was a particular amount of intercourse that took place. It's limited, very limited. So much so that out of all of the Europeans that exist on Earth today, there's probably about 2% of that particular genome in their makeup. 2%. Now, 2% in genes is nothing, right? I mean, if we're talking about the amount of what we have available in retrospect, so it means nothing.
And like you said, we strive as we take the higher level or higher approach to humankind, try to bring people like mind and want to see the survival of the human species.
Well, we would. That's if
Why
everybody thought that way, but everybody don't think like that.
We got Europeans who are really striving to do the right thing.
Yes, some, yes. And the thing is that we just gotta, begin to familiarize ourselves with the areas of study that oversee what we're talking about. So if you study anthropology, molecular biology, any of these particular sciences, they're gonna give you some insight in regard to what took place and how.
Right.
So that way, when you read somebody like a Shankar Diop, you'll understand what he's talking about.
Right.
Most people read him and don't know what they're talking about, what he said, what's really going on. And that's the problem, is that we have a lot of information that's available, but we don't know how to consume it. We don't know how to read it. And that's what we need to do, learn the mechanics of research and
You
study.
certainly be saying the blacks have been here right along with the indigenous. We was here.
Say that again?
There were blacks here along with the indigenous.
Who said that?
He didn't
I
say
don't
that.
I ain't never said that.
Oh, you never
Me.
said that.
He didn't say along with the indigenous.
No.
He just said blacks.
What I'm saying is that there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people who are making that claim, that the original people here were black. And trust is, there's a difference, and this is why I keep saying this. There's a difference between, and now, at this stage where we at now, we have adopted the issue that African and black is the same. But in science, that's not how you're gonna work that. Because there's people that are black that never been to Africa. And the reason that is because they're along that equator too. Africa ain't the only country on that equator, and the only continent on that equator. There's a lot of other people there too.
Okay.
The only problem is that we don't think of them as the same. Why? Because we look at Africa as the origin of human beings. That's a fact. The issue is that when and where. So when those individuals, say in India, became black, how did they get black? Did they was they left Africa, they was black, they went all the way to India and they stayed black, Again, that's not how science works. Science works based on a hand-in-glove relationship between genetics and environment. And it takes time. So the African that left Africa and ended up in China, there's no way he could have looked the same way he left. No way, because it would took, you know, tens of thousands of years to get to where he went. And then you think he's gonna look the exact same way he was when he left? Come on, science tells you opposite.
A whole different.
But the issue is that as all migrations, you have waves of migration. That means they don't all come at one time. You have one at such and such time, they go back, they come back and forth, this, that, and the other. A lot of people that they think are origin, like for instance, how could you go to China, like right now, and they got all these light-skinned looking yellow Chinese, and they got one group that's black, one group that's black. And it's not a whole group, it's maybe a small group, a little town or somewhere or something, and they say, well, these the original ones. These the original ones.
Might be.
That's can't, my thing is, how can they stay black and everybody else is yellow? How can that happen?
They stop.
No, it's impossible, it can't happen. The issue is that they ain't gonna be in the environment and not go through a metamorphic change. Impossible.
Right.
That means that they was not subjected to none of the environment and everybody else was? That don't make sense.
It doesn't.
Right. The issue is that those groups came there at a different time. It's not the issue. But and this is why I say you have to go and check the science. That means that I don't want to look at their color, I want to see that DNA. Let me see the DNA, because I know one thing, the color can lie, but the DNA can't. The DNA can't. In other words, the DNA is going to show me the morphological or the mutations that took place, and I'm going to find out some time period of when that shit started happening.
Even the artifacts, you would do tests on the artifacts, use tools to look at the remains.
No, but the tools are different. The human body ain't going to lie. The tools could lie. And they lied before. Leakey was the individual who came up with the first tools, the Olduvai Gorge tools. He was saying that they were such and such an age. About 4 or 5 years later, they came back and rearranged the whole shit. That was way deeper than what he had said. And that means that in anthropology, the sciences and the material change at the drop of a hat.
Technology.
And if we not on top, on top of the changes, we still today we still running around talking about Lucy. Lucy don't freaking mean nothing now. Lucy is 3.5 million years old. The oldest remains now is damn near 7.5.
Exactly.
That makes her look like a little kid. But we still talking about Lucy.
Stuck on stupid.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, give Brother Trust a great big hand. And we expect you to have it done. I'm going to stop the camera. You can have a conversation while we tidy up the place. But we want to give Trust a great big hand one more time.
You know, great African women, you know, in this month of Women's History Month, and most of all to reflect on some of the great accomplishments of African people at home and abroad. I hope I was able to share enough with you that, you know, make you think. That's my major job, is to make you think, and hope that you go away with something that you can literally go and follow up and do some research and broaden your understanding about these subject matter. So I just want to say thank you and hope to see y'all again soon.
All right.